Becky Womble, and I'm the president and CEO of the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce. This initiative, called Bastrop Votes, came out of our Governmental Affairs Committee meeting and was approved by our Board of Directors on December 16, 2016. And we launched this initiative before the end of the year. The purpose of this initiative is one thing, and it's to promote the vote. Our goal is to be a resource for fair, impartial, and informative information about candidates seeking office in Bastrop and Bastrop County. It is an exciting time to be a part of Bastrop. We continue to see new challenges and new opportunities as economic growth propels us into new waters, both in our county and especially our city. These times are dynamic, and they call for us to work together to advocate for our community. Before I get started, I'd like to ask you to do a couple things. First, please silence your cell phones. It's very distracting to our candidates. Secondly, from our previous two forums, we learned that in and out access of this theater is very distracting to the candidates. So our committee has made a decision that if you exit the theater during the forum, you will not be allowed back in. So if you need to make a phone call or anything, please do it right now, and we'll give you a couple minutes to get back in if you need to do that. Also, I'd like to remind the candidates that this is being live streamed. So please speak clearly into your mic so that our viewers at home can watch and that the people in the audience can also hear. I need to introduce a few people before we start tonight. First, for the fourth time, Miss Bernie Jackson as our timekeeper. So give her a round of applause. Our moderator tonight is Laura Klein. Ms. Klein and her husband own a CPA firm in Lockhart, Texas, and she's a past president of the Abilene League of Women Voters. So everybody take a deep breath, and we're ready to get started. Ms. Klein?
Thank you, Becky. The purpose of this forum is to provide these candidates with an opportunity to answer questions of interest to the voters. I'd like to present the criteria under which this forum will be held tonight. If a candidate had not attended, he or she otherwise could not be represented either by an individual or a prepared statement. Questions have not been made available to the candidates in advance. The questions which I will be asking have been selected by me from a list posed by panel members and rewritten for consistency and clarity by volunteers. Each candidate will be allotted the following: a 2-minute opening statement, a 2-minute response to each question, and a 30-second rebuttal for the first to answer that question. They will then have a 2-minute closing statement. Opening statements will be given in alphabetical order by place number on the City Council. The questions will also be answered in alphabetical order. The first question will begin with the second person to make his or her opening statement. Subsequent questions will alternate between the candidates in alphabetical order. To allow time for closing statements, a total of 8 questions are planned. If time permits, questions will be taken from the audience. Questions from the floor must be submitted in writing and may or may not be utilized based on time constraints and the appropriateness of the question as determined solely by the moderator. Audience members are asked not to respond with applause or audible statements during the forum. We'll now begin with the opening statements, beginning with place 1 and Mr. Goldsmith.
Hello. I gave it a great deal of thought before I ran for office, before I committed myself, because I believe it is an immense responsibility. It requires great sacrifice. And my hat's off to all of you that have done this. But instead of being a spectator, I decided I would become a part of it. It's easy to sit there and watch. This has shown me it's a lot harder to do. Here are my reasons for running, basically. I believe the rapid growth of Bastrop needs to be done with the highest level of integrity in municipal governance. By making smart choices together and changes, we can ensure that our city employees and leadership conduct the city's business with efficiency and integrity for the entire community. I want the entire community to be part of a common vision of service and responsible growth. Since arriving in Bastrop 9 years ago, I've been following closely both county, city, etc. politics. I serve on the city's Board of Adjustments, chair the Form-Based Code Initiative, and have served on the steering committee for the Bastrop Economic Development Strategic Plan in 2012. I volunteer at the Smithville Community Clinic and serve on the Boys and Girls Club Advisory Committee at the moment. I feel I'm well qualified for the position. My professional experience includes 11 years of government management and 13 years of private sector management. I hold my degrees, and I have completed advanced graduate work in criminology and policy science. In closing, I'm running because I can offer, also I'm a trained mediator. That might come in handy. In closing, I am running because I believe I can offer a fresh perspective, a perspective that will not be encumbered by obligations or affiliations. And once again, I'm willing to make the sacrifice and do the best I can. Amen.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, I've been around Bastrop. I'm a native Bastropian, and I am running for place 1 for Bastrop City Council. Again, I was born and raised in Bastrop. I attended Emile High School, which is located on the south section of the city. I graduated in Mena High School, which is now Bastrop High School. And I attended Central Texas College for a while. I'm married to my wonderful wife, Willie. She's here somewhere. And I'd like to recognize my wonderful mother over here. We've been in Bastrop all our lives, and I'm number 2 of 10 siblings. And they're all living in the city of Bastrop and Bastrop County. I served in the United States Army Security Agency for 3 years, and I'm a retired facility manager for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And for those of you who don't know what a facility manager is, it's basically the same job as a city manager does. I've been involved in many community activities, such as the restoration of Kerr Community Center. I'm a member of the local American Legion, and I currently serve on the Community Relations Board at the Federal Correctional Institution at Bastrop. I have previously served on the Bastrop City Council for 3 years and truly want to continue to serve the city of Bastrop. I want to continue to be a public servant for the city of Bastrop and Bastrop County. Thank you.
Ms. Gilliland?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Gilliland, and I currently serve on the Bastrop City Council in Place 5. I've been in Bastrop for over 11 years now. I'm married to Bastrop County's first assistant district attorney, my husband Greg, and my son Andy is a sophomore at Bastrop High School. I work as a therapist with troubled teens, and this summer I'll graduate with my doctorate degree from Arizona State University. I'm telling you all this because I want you to know that from the second we put our son in kindergarten here in Bastrop, we knew that this was our forever home. This is a community that cares, the people care about each other, and they care about this town, and we know that this is where we belong. I was elected in 2014 to a partial term. I filled the vacancy when Mayor Ken Kesselis was a council member, and then he chose to run for mayor. So I've only been in office for 2 years, but I'm proud to say that in those 2 years, I've accomplished a lot of things, even more than some of the council members that have been on there for several years. When I first got on council, I came up with the idea for Bastrop's first career and job fair. It was such a success that we decided to make it an annual event, and about 20 people were hired on site at that fair. It was the first time we'd ever come up with an idea like that, and we included the high school kids as well, which is the career part of the career and job fair. I also came up with 2 competitions that helped better our city. One was Team Up to Clean Up Recycling, and the other was Team Up to Clean Up Picking Up Trash Around Our Town. But probably the most important thing that I've done since you elected me is to bring more transparency to government. When I first joined council, I was somewhat naive and surprised that not everybody played by the same rules. I've worked really hard to make sure that we all get on the same page and that we all follow our ethics ordinances and that we have a transparent and open government for everybody. Thank you.
Ms. Jones?
Hi, my name is Deborah Jones. I'm a rural residential appraiser. A typical month for me, I work throughout Central Texas, will involve dozens of take-to-the-bank assignments. where I'll work with many different parties, often people that are not in agreement, but bring that assignment to closure. My work has been recognized by USDA, the Department of Interior, the American Banking Association. The American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers has recently asked me to help write a national certification program for rural appraisers. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who I'll be meeting with next month, have asked me to work with them to help put together lending packages specific for rural, single-family rural homes. A vote for me, Deborah Jones, is a vote for reasonable and responsible leadership. When elected as your Place 5 council member, I promise to provide a sound and responsible business mind to this office. I promise to respect the citizens of this community and know that I will conduct myself as a professional and respectful member to both our mayor and fellow council members. Thank you.
Thank you. When we go through these questions, if any of you need a question repeated, please let me know. The first question will go to Mr. Peterson. What are the top 3 issues facing Bastrop over the next 3 years, and how would you address them?
I believe the top 3, starting with number 1, is to have our city council be more responsive to our citizens, because I've had numerous people tell me they've carried things back and forth to the council and they didn't receive the response that they thought they should, or it was dragged out over a time. And that's number 1. Number 2 is our city infrastructure. Our city infrastructure is very outdated and needs to be replaced. And I hate to see things happen that come apart without proper maintenance. Our city needs more maintenance of the existing facilities and update the older facilities so we don't have a situation that'll cost us a lot more to repair after something happens with the age of our infrastructure. Number 3 would be our drainage issues. Bastrop is in a low-lying area. I do know that we have retention ponds all over the place. I consider retention ponds as a quick fix instead of getting down to getting the drainage issues and the water in low-lying areas, get it away from the city. So that's about my top 3 that I want to see happen with our city. Thank you.
Mr. Goldsmith?
What, I have 30 seconds?
No, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, what are my top 3 then? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Infrastructure, number 1. Roads, bridges, water supply, sewers, electrical grids, telecommunications, and the physical components of interrelated systems providing commodities and services essential to sustain and enhance our living conditions. This has been neglected, and we are in deterioration at this point in time. Operations, including staff restructuring of the city, already started, in fact, examining how we may better utilize hot funds regarding the DMO, perhaps keep it in-house, like everybody's saying. I think we should get that money back, keep it and use it. Defining roles and responsibility of myself and council, and transparency, follow the Open Meetings Act, do it right. My third, which I think is real critical too, is transition. Whether we like it or not, the city is growing quickly. The city manager almost left, came back, but our city operations cannot keep pace due to the volume and the constant shifting of priorities. Prioritizing is key. Everything shouldn't be on the agenda as a top thing. We need to prioritize and stick to it. While it's great to have a vision, it's just important to prioritize growth management and prepare for the eventual changes that will occur. A concrete example of a recent expansion in interest is the interest in North Bastrop, which we are working on now through the task force. And I just want to say, this is a great place, but it's on the cusp. Something to move forward. We're going to have to resolve a number of issues. And these are the 3 I think are most important.
Mr. Peterson, do you care to use your rebuttal time?
No, thank you.
Okay. We'll go to Ms. Jones.
I believe fundamentally the very first responsibility we have as council members is treating the members of the council with respect, as well as the administration. I believe that right now, the way the council is set up and structured, it is not functioning very well. It's, quite frankly, from the outside looking in, it's embarrassing. The way that our council members speak to each other, the way that our mayor's treated, I don't like it at all. That's not going to happen with me. Number two, our citizens. The citizens of Bastrop need to be treated equally. I think it's great that we have all of these changes that are happening, and yes, that needs to be addressed, but we cannot specifically leave the north side behind. Every council meeting I've gone to in the last few weeks, there's been one group or another there in protest. They're not getting their phone calls returned. Specifically, one group that was in there complaining about drainage. I know that I went up and looked at the retention ponds, and the drainage lines are all clogged. I mean, of course they're not working, And then on the flip side of that, we're talking about adding departments to the city of Bastrop, such as tourism, recreation, and I say we focus on infrastructure. I say we focus on just our, fire, police, the basic fundamental needs of a city. I do not agree that we need to set up more departments in the city when I don't see that we're really taking that good a care of a lot of the very fundamental issues that we have. Third is water. I'm out of time, so.
Thank you. Ms. Gilliland?
We have a lot of issues facing the city right now. Water is probably our most important issue. We have got to secure fresh drinking water for our citizens, and we are in the process of doing that. Unfortunately, we are still waiting on our permit to do so, but once that permit is in place, we should be able to supply the citizens. We have a plan in place right now to supply our citizens for the next 50 years from the site that we have recommended. So that's some good progress. Smart growth is another issue that we have to keep an eye on. We want to grow. We don't want to be a bedroom community of Austin. We want to retain our character, and we want to retain our unique charm. But the fact is, a lot of people want to move here, and we need housing. And when we allow developers to play by their own rules, then we are setting up some dangerous precedents. The city has to look after that, and unfortunately, it's a source of some of our lawsuits. Smart growth is a tough thing to plan for, especially in a city as old as Bastrop. But we can do this. We have a lot of great areas to develop, and we can do this and do it the right way. Infrastructure, we were founded in 1832. Our infrastructure is from a variety of ages, and we cannot replace it all at once. We sometimes seem to put our finger in the dike and just replace the most urgent, but infrastructure is definitely one of the top priorities of the city. Smarter spending is one thing that I feel is one of the top priorities for the city, and I know that's number 4, but as we come up to our budget, I have some ideas for incentivizing the departments to find ways to cut costs in their departments. Nobody knows their departments like these department heads and the people that work there. If we can incentivize our own employees to find ways to cut costs, we can spend our money smarter. Thank you.
Ms. Jones, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
I do. I would like to speak to water. We have a council that paid out $2 million for unpermitted wells, unheard of. So now we're backpedaling. We're involved in major litigation over this. This is a huge issue. This comes back to leadership. It comes back to having people on the council that have good business experience, of which I do. I'm a very successful businesswoman. I understand how deals are put together. this has gotten us in a lot of lawsuits, is just having people on the council that really don't know what they're doing. And when we talk about zoning, permits, and, excuse me, I'm out of time.
Sorry, you're out of time. Yes. Okay.
What'd she say?
They're going to let some more people in who are waiting outside.
Oh.
We don't want them walking in while you're speaking. Just take a seat anywhere, please. We ready? Okay. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Goldsmith. Does a good relationship currently exist between the city and other local governmental entities?
Well, I haven't heard any real complaints.
Okay.
I do believe that they are working with the ISD through the BEDC. I haven't heard anything about any issues between the county and the city. I believe that basically they're doing very well and have good relationships. Can they be improved? Well, any relationship can be improved. Is there something going on that's impeding the operations of government? As I said before, I think a lot of priorities and then leaving other things to the side have angered many. I know working with the, specifically working with the North End, there's been a lot of headway in that regard. I have a report before me that we prepared vis-a-vis a SWOT analysis, which indicates that things are going to happen, and that which was promised will be done, many of them, quickly. And including the development of the North End with the Piney Ridge, I've asked that we consider it to be included in a tax increment district so that the money collected from the development in an area, a designated area, will all the revenue generated will be returned to that community. It will not leave the community. We're talking about 170 homes. We're talking about the, ad valorem tax, et cetera. So I believe that the city has, for the most part, a good relationship with other entities.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Goldsmith. I haven't heard of any issues between governments, but I have brought this up before when I ran for another office. I would like to see more interaction and maybe a quarterly meeting between the city, the county, BISD, WCID, because I think if these entities would get together at least quarterly so everybody knows what's going on with each other, I think our whole county would be a better place to live. Because if you get these people together and each one of these entities know what's happening with the other, I think we can have a success throughout the entire county. Thanks.
Mr. Goldsmith, do you want to have a rebuttal?
No, not at all.
Okay. Ms. Gilliland?
I think the city of Bastrop has an excellent relationship with most of the governmental entities that I can think of off the top of my head, especially the county. And most of this is due to our city manager, who goes out of his way to work with all the different entities and strengthen the relationships. With the county, we work on a variety of shared services. We contract with them for our animal shelter. They do our 911 service. There's a variety of services that we work with the county on, and we've had no problems and no complaints. With BISD, we have a on-again, off-again relationship sometimes with them. We are on again. A few weeks ago, I met with BISD officials and Carlos Liriano, who arranged the meeting, and we have managed to come to an agreement where we are going to be able to utilize some of their gym space for open gym starting this summer as a pilot program. So that relationship is improving as well. We also have a great relationship with the state. Anytime we need something, we can call our state representatives, and they are prompt to come down to Bastrop and help us out with whatever we need. TxDOT is the same way, although we'd sometimes like more input in what roads they close and when. We have a great relationship with TxDOT. So I don't see any problems with other governmental agencies. Where we could probably do better are some of the quasi-agencies, such as the group that's formed on the north side. They need a little bit more attention, and we're prepared to give it to them. But otherwise, I think we're doing pretty well interagency-wise, and a lot of that is due to our department heads and the strong relationships that our city manager has forged. Thank you.
Ms. Jones?
Would you repeat the question?
Yes. Does a good relationship currently exist between the city and other local governmental entities?
The main issue that I can see, and this has been off and on for many years. I've been in Bastrop 35 years. I moved here after I graduated from UT. I guess now you know how old I am. And and it's with the basketball courts, but it's also with other public facilities that we as taxpayers have built, and trying to create this relationship where we have access to those. It seems like for decades this has been a back and forth issue. And it was really tough for me sitting through the council meeting last week and listening to our council talk about literally spending millions of dollars to build a basketball court when I think we already have 18 in town. That's very frustrating, and to me that comes back to good business decisions and leadership. As far as the state of Texas, I would really encourage the council to look at the vested rights as outlined by the state of Texas. I think that that's a basis for a lot of the frustration of our citizens and their inability to rely on permits and ordinances we have that have got us tied up in lawsuits and just escalating litigation, which is just unacceptable. The amount of money that we spend on litigation, this small community, over $1 million. So I think the biggest issue, I don't know that it's with other entities as much as it is with citizens. You know, the citizens are really on the outside with this, and they are, quite frankly, a lot of citizens, especially, we're looking at the group on the north side. The same issues that are being talked about today in the city council are the very same issues that were talked about 35 years ago when I moved to Bastrop. And I think the fact that we just continually say, hey, we're addressing that and it's going to be quick, I've heard the same thing for 35 years. This has got to stop. It's right now, it's today. We need to address and bring all of our citizens forward together.
Ms. Gilliland, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
Yes, please. I don't think that anybody who's ever attended a city council meeting has ever heard us say, this is going to be quick. City government does not operate that way. It takes time for us to hear all the different sides of everything and to weigh all the different voices, and that is part of our job. One thing that I'd like to address is Ms. Jones' comments that we don't know what we're doing on council, and that we don't show each other respect when we're doing it, and we don't show our citizens respect. I beg to disagree. Our citizens have come to me and said several times, thank you for listening to us, and thank you for helping us with our issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Peterson. What infrastructure improvements do you feel are necessary to make Bastrop competitive for job growth with other similar cities in Central Texas, or are we already there?
Wow, where do I start? As far as city infrastructure, as I said before, we are way behind the curve on streets, water lines, sewer lines, drainage. But these are issues that we need to address and address them as soon as possible. I know that the city is trying to get some things in order to do these things, but still we're way behind the curve, and these are some issues that should have been resolved years ago. When I was on the council 9 years ago, we talked about some of these very issues that we're talking about today as far as getting our infrastructure squared away. And you see every day you go down the street, there's a water line broke over here, water line broke over there, and there's a patch there or patch of pothole. And these are issues that needs to be kept up with and maintained instead of letting them fall apart. And those where our biggest issues are. We're behind the curve. We need to try to play catch up with our infrastructure issues. Thank you.
Mr. Goldsmith?
Oh, we're not there, that's for sure. And we have a lot of work to do. Just yesterday during the rain, my wife became very angry with me because I ran out practically in my skivvies with a hoe and a shovel to clean out the ditch on Spring Street because the water was backing up so much it was coming up to the bottom of my heat pump like the flood before. The drainage there is very poor. If I hadn't gone out and pulled out some of the stuff, it would have been much worse in my own yard. I also went up to the north end because I know of the problems there, and I drove up there yesterday evening and took a look at, took pictures, in fact, of an area where it's blighted with water. The homes are, even if they don't get, their foundations are soaked, the pier and beam starts going off, you can see the cracks. This yard was literally a pond. Now that was really only 3 inches of rain, I believe, yesterday. This wasn't the flood of May, the big flood. This was 3 inches. And if it does that much, has that much of an impact? And I didn't drive that, but I've talked to the folks up there, and one person will say, well, my house gets flooded every time, and this one says, no, mine doesn't. It goes down their driveway over into their house. So we have huge issues with our roads, et cetera. Our bridge is in need of repair. There's already been estimates on getting that fixed up. One of the historic marks of Bastrop, or has become. We talk about priorities, and that's why I made that my number one priority. This is huge. And is it ready for the next workforce? No. Piney Creek, great thing. I wanted that to happen. I'm glad it did, but that took a lot of work. It's going to make a difference. We need to keep moving forward, and that developer is going to help out.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
No.
Ms. Jones?
Everything that you've heard is definitely an issue. And so in the midst of all these really fundamental services that we should be providing as a city, we have a council wanting to add now another department, tourism. The Chamber of Commerce has stepped up and they have an excellent plan to handle tourism, to handle what's called the hot tax or the hot funds, the hotel, motel tax money for tourism. And yet we have a city council that's just really, really interested in putting that department into the city. And look at all these other issues that we're not able to handle, that are not being addressed. This is huge. I think we should not be adding departments. The other thing, the city wants to get into recreation. Recreation's great. Recreation is important. Let's leave that to the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club. That's what they do. The city has traditionally run the parks. That's great. Let's run the parks. Let's run police and fire. Let's take care of infrastructure. I am on it. I'm completely in agreement on that. As far as adding more departments in what I call right now is a hot mess with litigation, with just not, for example, the drainage lines. I know that I saw Mike Talbot over at that big retention pond yesterday on in the north part of town, and he was wondering why it wasn't draining. All the drain lines were overgrown. There's a tree growing out of one drain line. How hard is that to see? We made a statement about that 2 council meetings ago where we said the drainage lines were blocked. So I say we stick to the tasks at hand and quit trying to add more departments. Let the people that do that and do it well handle it.
Thank you. Ms. Gilliland?
Would you repeat the question?
Yes. What infrastructure improvements do you feel are necessary to make Bastrop competitive for job growth with other similar cities in Central Texas? Or are we there already?
We're not there already. We do need infrastructure improvements desperately, desperately. We are in the process now of revamping our budget to include even more infrastructure. But you have to remember that infrastructure comes at a price. It is not cheap to fix this stuff. And it's a balance between keeping the tax rates low and providing as much services as we can for those rates. As far as tourism goes, as my opponent has talked about, that is a completely different fund that you cannot use for anything other than tourism. The city requires oversight of these funds. This is something that is the city's financial responsibility to oversee. If we create a department, it could be a department of one, but we need someone who is specifically looking at these funds and making sure that they are being spent correctly and legally, and it's not going to cost that much to have an infrastructure, or to have a tourism director to oversee whatever form our DMO takes. That's a completely separate issue. As far as recreation goes, quality of life brings people to this city. The question is our infrastructure here to attract jobs and to make people want to live here? Not if we don't have enough quality of life. If our kids don't have anything to do, if there's nothing to do on the weekends, if they're going elsewhere, families are driving elsewhere for their recreation, then we're losing out. This community is now big enough to support some recreation, and the proposal that our city manager brought forward using the HUD funds that the county has so graciously allowed us to use is actually a pretty good proposal. It's not just another basketball court. It is an indoor facility that the whole community can use. And if it goes that way, great. If there's another way to use that money, great. We're going to decide this next meeting because time has run out.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
I do. Ultimately, the city of Bastrop has oversight over all of these departments that we've been talking about adding, both tourism and recreation. These are very specific to what you're talking about. When we can't even handle infrastructure, when we have made our citizens so frustrated and so angry about our inability to be consistent with permits and ordinances that we're involved in litigation, I say we have a lot of tasks at hand. For us to sit here and say, let's add more tasks, let's get more responsibilities on a city level is remiss, in my opinion.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Goldsmith. Sounds like this is appropriate at this point. What is a destination marketing organization, otherwise known as a DMO? Why does Bastrop need it? And should it be a city department or a separate entity?
Well, what is a DMO? The big secret. For 10 years, we didn't know. We just knew it was something. Now, all of a sudden, it came to the agenda, and we all basically know what it is or what it's supposed to be doing. The long and the short of it is, it's an organization that actually promotes Bastrop tourism, including the county, but specifically the city, in our particular case with the HUD funds, because that's where it's going to go, within the city limits. What the DMO is supposed to do is bring people in, have them stay overnight, and that contributes to the HUD funding, and so it goes. The circle continues. What was the rest of that question?
Should it be a city department or a separate entity?
Well, that's a loaded one. Well, the long and the short of it is that whatever we talk about quality assurance. We have to make sure that what the DMO is supposed to do, it's going to do it. If that requires a type of position within the city to do the oversight to make sure whether or not it's a 501 C, 3C or whatever it is, and have them have their own board of directors and do the marketing, et cetera. We still need to be able to track those funds and make sure they're used correctly. And what I don't think has happened, and what needs to happen is we need outcome measures. We need to know, is it working? And God bless all the businesses out there that have worked so hard to do what they've done and have continued to thrive, in spite of the fact that they probably haven't got the marketing advantage they deserve. I think it needs to be looked at. I'm not going to say it should be a city department. I'm not going to say it should. There are so many models out there, and there's got to be one that's a good fit for us, but we need that money back.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes, for once I have to agree with her. Yeah, the marketing is a good thing for Bastrop. It's detriment to Bastrop. Again, you can look at it from both sides, possibly run as a separate entity with city oversight, but that there again, it may have to be a city department. Again, those are some things that got to be looked at and see how it works out as we get more into it and kind of weigh it out. And I wouldn't do a long-term contract, if you will, but weigh it out and see how it's going to work out to where the city will know whether the city can form a city office to take care of that or to outsource it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goldsmith, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
Not to rebuttal, not to rebuke,
Okay.
but just to say, to thank the businesses. All of them haven't really actually thrived. Some of them are just making it, and they've done a really good job of hanging in there and making Bastrop a destination for a lot of people. The other thing is, Mike once told me that he sees more people at Bob Bryant that aren't from the city. They're coming into Bob Bryant and using the recreation space there. And the rebuttal.
Ms. Gilliland?
A DMO is basically a place that we can park our funds that we receive from hotel occupancy tax. These funds come to the city of Bastrop in an amount of about $2.8 million a year. The majority of them come from the Hyatt. We've had an agreement with the Hyatt and the Bastrop Marketing Corporation for the past 10 years to market the region, and that agreement ends in May. The council has voted to extend that agreement kind of on a temporary basis while we figure out what form the DMO should take. It is too soon to say what form the DMO should take because we have not heard all the evidence. We heard an excellent presentation from the Chamber of Commerce, and they made some excellent points. We also heard a really great presentation from the city's Vision Task Force. I understand that the Main Street program has some ideas, and I also have spoken to the Hyatt, and they want to weigh in. And who better than the Hyatt to tell us how to take Bastrop and make it a tourism destination when they have taken a piece of wilderness and made it into a multi-million-dollar business? Does that mean they should run our DMO? I don't think so, but it does mean that they have ideas that we need to listen to. There's a forum where the citizens can come and weigh in, coming up at the city, and you can give your ideas on how a DMO should be structured. The county and the chamber have also put together some DMO experts that are coming on the 29th, and they're going to give us some ideas. So it's too soon to say how it should be structured, but one thing I do know is the city is ultimately responsible for those funds. If we set up an organization to distribute those funds, we better get it right the first time. If people have said, oh, we'll just set it up like the BEDC, but let me remind you that at the BEDC, if the council wants to weigh in on something that they're doing, we can't because we've given our authority to them and they have their own board. We have to be careful that we don't do the same thing with the DMO and let them take control of something that then we can't get control back of. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
I heard one of the council members at a recent meeting saying that we need to keep this a city department when talking about the DMOs so that we can figure out how to spend these funds. And that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It is not the city's responsibility to figure out how to set up a DMO. It's not the city's responsibility to figure out how to organize recreation. There are people that do this for a living. And there's time after time we're getting involved in areas and trying to figure out how to do it versus using professionals that are out there. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel on this. In my opinion, based on the information that's been provided, this absolutely should be a separate department from the city. Again, I say the city's job is infrastructure, it's water, it's police and fire. It's not tourism and recreation.
Thank you. Ms. Gilliland, do you want to rebut?
Yes, please. I completely disagree with that. The city is a recipient of a tax that is a governmental tax that goes to the city. It is our job to be stewards of that tax, and it is our job to use it correctly for tourism. It can only be used for tourism that brings people here on overnight stays. It can't be used on tourism for people that are driving through and might stop in for lunch and then leave. We have to be specific about this, and we have to find somebody who knows. The council does not know how to set up a DMO. We recognize that. We have to find a professional that we can trust, that we can hire to give us the advice that we need, whether that person is an employee or an outside entity.
Ms. Holland, thank you.
May I have a rebuttal?
No, I'm sorry, we're out of time now on that question. You can speak to it in your closing statement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Question number 5, Mr. Peterson. In light of current and anticipated growth, is the city's current management structure sufficient to handle this growth?
I would say no. There's things that I've talked about in the past with the growth with the city of Bastrop. I thoroughly see Bastrop hiring an assistant city manager. With the growth rate of Bastrop right now, it's, from what I've seen, it's overloading our city manager, and he could use some help instead of carrying the entire burden by himself. There's a lot going on. As the city grows, our departments need to grow to take care of and maintain our infrastructures and so forth. But I foresee our city manager really needs some help to take some of the burden from him. I think it'll make our city a better city with another set of eyes and help from an assistant city manager. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Goldsmith?
Repeat that question.
Yes. In light of current and anticipated growth, is the city's current management structure sufficient to handle this growth?
You're talking about the city operations?
It says the current management structure.
All right. It needs some work, and it needs to be looked at. And I went to the National League of Cities and printed off what city councils are supposed to do. And what you say is actually part of what it's supposed to do.
Could you speak in your mic?
Excuse me. Review and approve the annual budget, establish long and short-term objectives and priorities, oversee performance, establish tax rates, enter into legal contracts, borrow funds, pass resolutions and ordinances. I mean, I could go on. And part of it, any city council, would be to take a look at the current operations, which I listed as my number 2 priority, to see what is lacking. The problem that some people have is they don't understand that the way governments operate, there is a level of inefficiency built into a government because they do things that no one else does. They have to do things that no one else do. You can't privatize it. It's going to be a certain way. It should be looked at. The operations can be improved. Mike is stretched too thin. 2 years ago, I sent an org chart to the city and Mike. And in that org chart, I had it broken out. For 2 years, I actually spoke up, citizen comments. And in the org chart, I broke it out. Hey, Mike, why don't you do this? Why don't you let another person do this? And in it, I had and they did part of it with the safety person, being an umbrella to the fire department, the city police, et cetera. I was kind of happy they did that. But I think Mike needs a more hand in to release him from some of the things that he's doing so that this person could do the day-to-day and make sure it's efficient. Mike should make sure it meets the goals and the visions of the citizens. Operationally, somebody needs to do the oversight and the quality assurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, would you like to have a rebuttal?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith.
You're welcome.
Okay. Ms. Jones?
I've heard that for 10 years that the council and other members inside the city have been asking our manager to hire an assistant, and he will not do it. He micromanages a lot of the tasks, which, you know, good or bad, and he's overwhelmed. The city has changed tremendously. And I think that this is a perfect example of change that needs to happen for the city. We need, when recommendations are made about directions we need to go, they need to be listened to. When you have person after person recommending that you're hiring an assistant and you choose not to listen, I think that's a problem. And, you know, back to this whole issue with the DMOs, ultimately the council has the power of the purse over any of these departments. EDC, tourism, any of these departments have ultimately got to go to the city for approval on their budget. So for us to say that we have to run those or we lose control of the funds is just misleading. So in my opinion, some of the changes that need to happen is we need business people on the council. We need people that understand how to run business. We need people that don't heavily rely on the advice of our city attorney who bills out by the hour, making multiple phone calls multiple times a day, multiple times a week to get advice over fundamental principles that are second nature to people who run successful business.
Thank you. Ms. Little,
Yeah.
Ms. Gilliland?
Close enough, that's it. Now I forgot what the question was.
Okay. In light of current and anticipated growth, is the city's current management structure sufficient to handle this growth?
I would say that the city's current management structure is in need of a little bit of tweaking, but that I would also remind everyone that the way that our city is set up, the council sets policy and the city manager runs the city. We can advise, we cannot mandate. We cannot tell Mike Talbot that he needs to hire an assistant city manager and force him to do that. It is not the way the law reads. So we can suggest it, and we've had discussions over this, and I believe that an assistant city manager will be in next year's budget. I also believe that in light of some issues that we seem to be having on our legal costs, that we will see a proposal for a paralegal who will take some of the burden off of our city attorney, and at some point we may go to a full legal department. We are not there yet. I've been asking experts on this to see at what point does a city need a legal department in-house, and the information that I've come up with is when you are using a city attorney, contract city attorney more than 40 hours a week on a consistent basis, you should probably start looking at hiring some help. We are almost there, but we are in an extraordinary circumstance right now where we have two major lawsuits going on that we have hired outside counsel for, but our city attorney still has to be the liaison for that. When those lawsuits are finalized, we'll have a better picture of just how much time we need our city attorney for, and we'll be able to see if we need to do an in-house department or if we can continue to contract out. But as far as the rest of the city departments go, that's Mike's department, that's our city manager's department, and his hopefully new assistant city manager here in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, would you like to have your rebuttal time?
Yes, when you do the math on $155 an hour and you multiply that out, that sounds like more than 40 hours a week to me. So I don't understand your reasoning on we haven't gotten there yet. From what I understand, I think our city attorney is much too accessible, not only by council members, but by citizenry. I think that even the library calls her to discuss library fines and how to handle that. That's ridiculous. And as far as outside counsel, we're up over $1 million. We're in lawsuits frustrating our citizenry with, time's up.
Thank you. Question number 6, and we'll start with Mr. Goldsmith. What is your opinion of the city's economic development efforts?
I think it's done very well. If you look at sales tax as a measure of performance I think there's some tweaking that needs to be done. I think Mr. Quinn did a great job. I know Sean is doing a good job. But I think I have seen some tweaking that could be done in terms of how you provide an incentive to a business or an entity, to bring in a business or an entity. And you do the economic impact study ahead of time, not after the fact that you made an award or you're about to make an award. When I was on the committee in 2012, they came up with some really great recommendations, and they've been followed. And I think that was one of the reports that actually somebody did, and they followed it. And they actually have gotten so much out of that. I think we're not doing bad at all in that area. I think the community is starting to define what it wants. We have the industrial park, which has expanded and done a great job. We have other entities wanting to move here. I know of developers want to come in and develop the areas, and they're looking at the north end, in fact. So something's going right, and I believe that there does need to be oversight. And I personally, I sent an email to Sean and asked him some questions, and he said, you know, Herb, you need to come in and sit down. We need to talk, because I would be more than happy to explain our policies and the way we operate, which is the way I should have done it to begin with a phone call instead of an email. So he forgave me for that. But I think we're doing pretty good. I think we're moving ahead, and I think we have a lot to be proud of.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Goldsmith about BDCD needs some tweaking, because I've seen at least 2 projects that I've noticed that got severely behind because they didn't have the leadership at the time to make sure these projects were being done. One particular project, I as a council member at the time had to walk along with the city manager to make sure to do a checklist to make sure that a project that was done by the BEDC was carried out correctly. And those kind of things that maybe the head of the EDCD need to get out of the office a little bit more when you're working a project to make sure that project is being carried out like it should be from inception to the final product. So yes, it does need some tweaking to where these guys can make sure these products are being done and done in a prompt, safe, and good manner. Thank you.
Mr. Goldsmith, you have a rebuttal time.
Yes, I do. And I can give you an example of some tweaking that needs to occur. They are currently examining their bylaws as we speak. It's on their agenda. They have an ad hoc committee. There appears to be an overrepresentation of city council people on BEDC, and they vote. That was what I sent an email to Sean about. Can you do us a favor? You can do this in the bylaws. We don't need to do a charter review. Just take a look at this. Do we have too many members, and whether or not they should vote, and be transparent.
Thank you. Ms. Gilliland?
I have to agree with Herb. We do have too many city council members voting on BEDC. And I hope that they would put it in their bylaws that would limit the amount of council influence, but we can't be sure of that because 3 council members will be voting. So it may stay in the BEDC bylaws in any case. So if we do go to a charter amendment, I have suggested that we make it a charter rule that no city council member or mayor can vote on any board that is controlled by the city. We shouldn't vote twice. We shouldn't have double influence. You shouldn't vote on a project at the BEDC or on this new DMO board that we may set up and then come to council with it. I also think it stifles the growth and the ideas at EDC if you've got 3 council members over there discussing council business at the EDC. Let's get some new faces in there and some new blood. Let's get some new ideas. The EDC's primary function is to bring jobs to us. They have brought retail, they have brought jobs, they help revitalize parts of Main Street. They are quite active and doing a very good job. We could do more in our industrial park, and I think that that's in their plans. We can do more to bring in bigger employers, and I think that that is in their plans too. But as far as council influence, I agree with Mr. Goldsmith. let council be council and let the EDC figure out the economic development of our city and figure out where our primary jobs, what our strengths are. We need a workforce, which the chamber and BISD and the city have all worked together on to try to analyze and to try to strengthen. And we need an educated workforce, so maybe we can do something about bringing education here too, secondary education. The EDC is also tasked with looking at that as well, and I hope they do.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
I think that economic development is doing a great job. It's run by a very impressive person. Sean Kirkpatrick is just brilliant to speak to and just does a really good job. And that department is an excellent example of what happens when the city allows a group to set itself up that is completely responsible to the council, has to depend on votes to have its funding by the council, but they allow themselves to be set up by a group of people and managed and have projects put together in a very similar, not the way the BDEC is set up now, but a very similar idea with a department that has a head and runs itself. Is exactly what I'm talking about, and for tourism and then possibly recreation, but through entities that already have experience with that. So these other people up here, I completely agree with them about how successful that organization is, and I think it's primarily due to the way that it's set up.
Thank you. Ms. Gilliland, would you like a rebuttal?
Sure. There are 7 members on the BEDC board. 3 of them are council members, so it's a little stifling, I would say. They're not exactly free to do whatever they want to if they're influenced by 3 council members who will also come to our council meetings and try to push their agendas as well. It's not always a bad thing. I would encourage these council members to still participate as ex officio members, not voting members. But the last time that I suggested this, I was told by one of the council members, why would you go to a meeting if you can't vote? So I would suggest that we don't have council, so much council representation on BEDC.
Thank you. The next question. We'll start with Mr. Peterson. How do you feel the city of Bastrop is viewed by others in the larger Central Texas region?
Just a great place to live.
Okay.
But I think Bastrop stands alone. Well, Bastrop is a great city. Like I said, we can sit and talk about things we could do to better our city and to attract more people to move to Bastrop. But if we want to do that, and some people want to move to Bastrop, but we have to stay ahead of it, stay ahead of the curve and have responsible growth and development to be ready for the people that want to move to Bastrop and have things for people to do. We talked about recreation. We talked about a number of things here to make our city greater than it is now. But as far as other people look at the city of Bastrop, they think we have a great place to live. And I was talking to people just the other day. I think some of the people will want to come back to the Lost Pines area, which is I consider part of Bastrop. And those are things I think people look up to Bastrop to move here and have a great life. And we're not at all a retirement community, so we have to have facilities and things for everyone to do. And I think we're getting there, a little slow with it, but we're getting there to where people look up to the city of Bastrop and want to move here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goldsmith?
Repeat that question.
How do you believe the city of Bastrop is viewed by others in the larger Central Texas region?
Well, what is that? It's not that there is good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. I think that people outside of Bastrop look at us and say they've been through 2 fires. They've been through floods. And yet somehow they manage to have events that are so much fun. They see this town as resilient. They see the people as friendly. I've talked to people from out of town. They come in. I was just in John's barbershop, and the guy decided to get a shave and his haircut. He was from Leander, and we spoke for a little while. He loved it. He said, well, my wife's busy shopping. I'm going to do something productive, get a haircut and get a shave. And so people look at this when they come here as a visitor. I'm sure they see the one that they like, that it isn't 6th Street. They like that they can walk along Main Street and do some shopping and do some nice dining, then go back on that alley and see picking on the porch, or sometimes anytime they're picking on the porch, and go to Neighbors for a Pizza. There's cuisine here that meets every need. So they come here to get away from what the usual is, for the most part. And that's how generally, that's how people see it. I don't know what other government entities, I don't know what those people see. I don't know what they believe, I don't know what they, but I think they too see this as one resilient place and one hardy bunch of people. And actually, a very diverse group in many ways. It's funny how every time I run into somebody, they're from Michigan. Everywhere I move, there's somebody from Michigan. So it's nice. People are moving here from other states. It's a great place.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, do you have any further comments?
I was just welcome to Bastrop, Herb.
Thank you, David. I wasn't born here, but I like it.
Ms. Jones?
In my business, I cover a 14,000 square mile area in Central Texas, and I have relationships with people in every one of those communities, from Rockdale down to Nixon, from Llano all the way over to Burton. And absolutely every time I walk into a business and people hear I'm from Bastrop, they're just like, oh, that's the coolest place. And so I know exactly how people see Bastrop. It's just beautiful, and we have completely won. We have, like I said, I've been here for quite a long time, and I can remember when downtown was completely boarded up. I had the only business downtown, and look at us now. It's absolutely great. We've totally hit a home run on this deal, which is one of the main reasons I've thrown my hat into the ring. I am so qualified to provide the leadership and the business knowledge we need, because it's a different game. We've taken ourselves to a place of really, really needing people on the council that understand what's going on without having to continually make themselves proficient through use of our city attorneys and so forth. There's other ways that you can understand what's going on, and being a successful business person is certainly one of them.
Ms. Gilliland?
When I ask people or tell people that I'm from Bastrop, I always get the same response. And it's similar to what Ms. Jones said. That is so cool. How is it after the fire? How is your community? Everybody knows Bastrop for being a resilient place, like Mr. Goldsmith said, but also a friendly place, a welcoming place, a charming and vibrant place. People want to visit here. They're impressed with the way that we do things here. They love our downtown. They love the river. They love the low crime rates here, and they love that our police department waves at people when you're at a stop sign. I mean, I moved here from Houston. That didn't happen. If they waved at you, you were getting pulled over. It doesn't happen here. They wave because they care about the citizens, and they try to make that connection. And that's what we want to be known for, a community where we care about each other and we connect with other people. I have to work in Lockhart for my job, which is unfortunate because I would like to live and work in the same place. And many people have to work elsewhere in Austin or elsewhere because there just aren't enough jobs here. But they still want to move here. And that's a good thing because our kids can still play in the streets. They can still ride their bikes. The schools are improving all the time. My son's teachers are the greatest teachers ever. I wouldn't put him in any other school district after seeing how well he's treated there. I can't say enough good things about this place, and it's one of the reasons that I want to continue to serve on council, because I want to make sure that we save the charm and the vibrancy that we have while we continue to grow. We need to make room for our new neighbors. They want to be here. They want to get waved at by the police department too. So.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
I'm sure I do. Let me see here. Do I have to use it now?
No, you don't have to do anything.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, we're going to take up questions from the audience now, and we're going to take a couple of minute break while we get those gathered up. Thank you.
You mean that's all?
No, sit down.
Oh.
We're not done with you yet.
Can we go to
We're just got a different group of questions coming.
That's right.
you take a potty break?
No,
Oh, okay. Do that
You're
way.
on TV, Herbie.
you got 20 minutes to wait.
I'm human.
I already unsnapped it, but I haven't drank it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's go. All four, let's get up and walk out.
Ask and answer.
Question to Mr. Goldsmith. Do you see potential in attracting more tech jobs to Bastrop, and how can we accomplish this?
Oh, definitely.
Hmm?
Yes.
Okay.
I do believe we can attract more tech jobs. I think we have talent in the schools, and I think the schools are now developing, have the availability and training people in technology. There's already a partnership with ACC that's going on. You have the River Collegiate Academy. You've got kids that are graduating with their associate's degree. You've got the robotics club. We've got a lot of stuff going on with the young. The youth are so involved with wanting to learn this and carry it on. And recently I saw a great presentation at BEDC where there's going to start using actual companies to help kids go and actually learn a part of like an apprenticeship almost, like at the car dealership or whatever. Which, believe it or not, a car is very technical now. Tech jobs aren't what we think they are. They're everywhere. It isn't about computers. It's about being able to repair an automobile correctly with a sensor and all the other things that go along with it. So I think we shouldn't narrow our focus on tech and seeing it as just this one little niche. It's everywhere. And the kids now are coming up and they're into it and they know how to use the technology. They're already designing games. They're already doing things and posting and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So there is the opportunity. There's in terms of production, there is the opportunity with the industrial park. In terms of doing the type of work that, or your software development, et cetera, you can do that from your own home if you're good at what you do, like some people I know. And so, yes, there's great opportunities. And they can be low, small, large.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes, I definitely see high tech coming to Bastrop in the very same areas that Herb said. But the automobile business is all high tech now. All the new cars are all high tech cars, to the point to where you got cars that almost drive themselves anymore. And I can see a major company coming to Bastrop, because Bastrop has the room for that company to grow, if you will. It can start at a small satellite and grow into a larger company. So I definitely see Bastrop being open to high tech. I was really hoping that we get some tech schools. I was hoping that we'd get ACC in Bastrop, but that did not happen. But maybe in the future it will, to where we can train our young people right here in Bastrop without them having to go to Austin, Elgin, or wherever. And we can do it right here in Bastrop, and to where our own young people can grow with our city and grow with the high-tech industry.
Mr. Goldsmith, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
Only to say that, again, thinking about technology in terms of manufacturing, software development, et cetera, it's limitless. And there's no reason why we can't attract those businesses. Again, it's going to go partially back to the quality of life, attracting the folks that have the education, et cetera, they've gone through school and want to have a nice place to live. We want to make that happen, and it will come. Thank you.
Ms. Gilliland?
I think we're uniquely poised to become a tech center based on the growth of Austin's tech center now. Austin has become the new Silicon Valley, and all of the tech companies are moving there. We are starting to get the overflow of the people who can't afford to live in Austin or would rather live in a rural area, and they're starting to move to Bastrop now with our new subdivisions. I think that is a good indicator that we could potentially attract satellite offices and maybe even a real manufacturing or programming office from a tech company to Bastrop based on our proximity to Austin. So that's a real plus for us. One thing about tech companies, though, is they want highly educated people to do their jobs, and we need some highly educated options here. We have ACC, but we actually should probably be looking at a 4-year university of some sort, or an agreement with one where we can partner with them and even offer just specific classes here in Bastrop, so that our workforce is more attractive to these companies and they do want to relocate here. We have a lot of incentives, but I think we could have more. And I know that the EDC is working on this, and high tech is one of their key industries that they're trying to attract, that as well as medical field. So if we can support them in any way, I think the city should. Thank you.
Ms. Jones?
When ACC looked at moving to Bastrop, I broke down those numbers, and the cost it would cost per child to bring ACC here was $240,000, and I didn't really see that as an option. I think it's fine to talk about incentives. I think it's fine to talk about bringing universities and education here, but you know, UT is a 30-minute car ride down the street, and that's pretty first class. You have to look at the cost. I don't think that when you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars per person to educate somebody, I don't think that's a reality. I don't think that that's reasonable. I don't think that that is responsible. Yes, those jobs are going to come here, and those people are maybe the people are going to come here because of the opportunities that there are in Austin, but I, for one, feel like we already have a lot of services in place to accompany or to accommodate that workforce.
Ms. Gilliland, do you want to use your rebuttal?
Sure. We have a lot of new programs at BISD that are concentrated on the high-tech industry, that are concentrated on the sciences. But these kids don't have a place to work here in Bastrop when they get that education. So they will go to UT or some other school, and then they won't come back because there's no place for them to use the education that they've obtained. So unless we offer a partnership with some university or some company like Dell or another like Apple, and bring some jobs to here, we're just going to have a brain drain of our good people.
Thank you. Becky, do we have time for another question? One question. Okay. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Peterson. What is your position on preservation and maintenance of the Piney Creek watershed and other natural resources within Bastrop proper?
Within Bastrop proper.
That's the question.
One thing I'd like to see done is we're talking strictly about water, or
The question is, what is your position on the preservation and maintenance of the Piney Creek watershed and other natural resources within Bastrop proper?
okay. The best thing we can do with the Piney Creek areas as far as preservation is, again, I'm a maintenance freak, is to keep these areas clean of all debris and clutter, and have someone to inspect them at least once a year. This also includes the drainage at Gills Branch, because all the contributors that I'm talking about, they run right into the Colorado River, and that's one thing we need to look at preservation on that end, because the Colorado River is a great resource, and all of the contributors that come through Bastrop, which are quite a few, they go direct into the Colorado River. So we just need to beware of maintenance and clean up and take care of these areas, so these areas can just kind of keep them safe and look toward the future and find some kind of maintenance plan to keep these areas clean and free of clutter.
Thank you. Mr. Goldsmith?
Well, first of all, the Piney Creek project in and of itself went from what could have been a lot of homes with a great deal of impermeable parking spots and roads to a development that uses about half of what it had, which was about 40 acres, had over 80 acres, which it has turned into green space, which will have a walking path, which we hope, or as the plan is, that one day we'll go down to Fisherman's Park. So some of this is being addressed in the planning. The problem with the Piney Creek watershed right now is it hasn't been cleaned up. It's got tires and all kinds of things in there that needs to be cleaned up. Again, this goes back to the infrastructure issue. Gills Branch, Bill and I were on the task force, was one of the first things that they noticed was that it hadn't been maintained and everybody's in a floodplain. And so that was addressed. And this has to move forward. As part of the form-based code project, that's exactly what we've been looking at, is more green space, walkable space, transition space, so that when you go from one area of town to the next area, it's a natural transition. You're not just going from, a half industrial right into a housing development. It's all planned out. It's all there. It's all in our code now in the central city. It took almost, 2 years? But it's there. And it's full of these ideas of utilizing green space, affordable housing, natural transitions, checking out the utilities and also the drainage, all that. We have that in the central. We're now working towards the north end, and we already have people looking at it. And one reason they tasked us to do it is because they said, you have too many infrastructure issues. You have to look at them first. So I'm done.
Mr. Peterson,
No,
do you want
thank
to? All right. Ms. Jones?
This really points towards something that as a city, I believe we have a lot of issues with, and that is our whole idea of permits and ordinances. Bastrop already has zoning, and it has just been beyond me how we could have gotten or our council could have gotten so involved in a project that was already zoned and make that just a nightmare for that developer. And we look at once permits are issued and people try to follow ordinances within the city, looking at zoning, we have a city attorney and a city manager that really get involved in these projects and literally micromanage people just into insanity. And it's very frustrating. And from the outside looking in, from our citizens, this is one of the big issues that we have. One of the reasons that we have some of the lawsuits that we have is there's a certain amount of inconsistency. A lot of these issues are handled case by case, and it creates some issues. And again, I would want to go back and have the council look at the Texas vested right rules. You know, this is just, there has to be a reliance on these zoning and on permits and on ordinances beyond the city going in and saying, you know what, we changed our mind, or we didn't mean that, or I know it's zoned that, but you can't do that. That's not how we want it to look. So again, you know, I think we're at a point in Bastrop where we need leadership, and we need people that can help make reasonable decisions. And that's, you know, a good example of where it's not happening.
Thank you. Ms. Gilliland?
Can you repeat the question? Wasn't the question about watershed?
What is your position on the preservation and maintenance of the Piney Creek watershed and other natural resources within Bastrop proper?
The Piney Creek watershed is a resource that we can all utilize. It has some issues right now because it hasn't been cleaned out for a long time, as my counterparts have said here. Because cleaning out the watershed is a responsibility that is a joint responsibility. The city, the county, the LCRA, we all play a role in this, and it's come to a point now that we have to look at it, because we are going to have development right there, and it is a flood-prone area. With Gills Branch, the city was able to secure a grant to successfully clean that, and we have pretty much eliminated the problems on Gills Branch. We are also applying for a grant to do the same thing in the Piney Creek watershed so that we can maintain that as well. It should be a resource that we can all use for recreation. And going to the green space that Mr. Goldsmith was talking about in the Piney Creek development, the council actually took a stand where we wanted the developer to hold the amount of green space that he promised to hold, and we made him say that to us. We made him promise that the amount of green space that he was going to use is what he was presenting to us. And if that looked like irresponsible leadership, I'm not sure that I understand, because we listened to every citizen and we listened to the developer, and we were able to come up with a compromise that suited both. So as far as the green space goes and the watershed, I think we did our job there. And I think that when we get the grant to clean out the Piney Creek watershed, it'll be used by even more citizens, and they'll be able to access it from that land because we protected it with the agreement with the developer.
Ms. Jones, do you want to use your rebuttal time?
No.
Okay. We're going to go to closing statements now. We'll start with Mr. Goldsmith. You have 2 minutes closing
Oh, I do?
statement.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to say one thing. We talk about tech and IT. That gentleman right there is still in high school. He's partnered with the IT department in the city. We've got some folks back here from Cedar Creek, I believe, running the cameras. This goes to show you what can happen, and it's happening within our own city government. Now, closing. Policy should drive the future of Bastrop, not reactive decisions or individual agendas that impair progress. Policy should be formulated by honest dialogue and be transparent. Specifically, public policy has a number of key attributes. Policy is made in response to some sort of issue or problem that requires attention. Policy that might take the form of law or regulation or set of all the laws and regulations that govern a particular issue or problem. Policy is made on behalf of the public. and that includes the entire community. Policy is oriented toward a goal and desired state, such as a solution to a problem. Policy is ultimately made by governments, even if the ideas come from outside the government, such as the Chamber with the DMO, or through the interaction of government and the public. Policy making is part of an ongoing process that does not always have a clear beginning or end, since decisions about who will benefit from policies and who will bear any burden resulting from the policy are continually reassessed, revisited, and revised. No doubt there are many problems in our communities that need to be solved. Some problems may readily be dealt with by actions within the private sector or by our civil society, the social, economic, and political association of organizations. Public policy problems are those that must be addressed by laws and regulations adopted by government. Our efforts should be pro-citizen, not pro-agenda, and our efforts should firmly establish that our problems are what we need to work on. And in fact, problems which require government involvement to reach that solution, otherwise stay out of it. Anyway, frankly, I'm policy-driven, and I have no hidden agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Yes, thank you. Through my past work experience, I know that I can bring some new ideas to the City Council and the citizens of Bastrop. I'm always a very good listener. I'm always able to contact the citizens of Bastrop for their input and suggestions. I definitely believe in a reduction of waste. I believe in reduce, reuse, and recycle. I also want to make sure that we increase public safety through annual refresher training for our police officers and firefighters. I want to update training for our code enforcement officers. I want to update and maintain the city's infrastructures, such as water, wastewater, drainage, and electrical systems. We all know it's inevitable that Bastrop will grow, and that's why we have to promote responsible development to coincide with growth through programs such as farm-based code. I want to continue to be a public servant. Just the other day, a gentleman asked me, he said, "Bill, why in the world do you want to be on the city council?" And I said jokingly, "You think I'm nuts, don't you?" And then I responded, "It's because I care. I am a public servant." My name is Bill Peterson, and vote for me May 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gilliland? No.
We've covered a lot of very important topics this evening. There are many more that are also issues that we haven't covered. But one thing I would like to address is my opponent keeps talking about our irresponsibility on council and our legal fees and how our city manager and our attorney are not doing their jobs. And I'd just like to say that as a council member, you are one of 6. And there's a city manager as well. We all have to work together. Just because I or Ms. Jones or anyone has an idea doesn't mean that you're able to enact that idea. You have got to be able to compromise, and you have got to listen to what the citizens have to say as well. It's a process, and it's working the way it should right now because we have an open dialogue. Sometimes our meetings are pretty heated, but that is because we're following the rules now. We're finally following the rules. We are not discussing things behind closed doors. We're having our discussions right there in front of you so that you can see where our passions lie and you can see how our decisions are being made. That's the kind of government that I want to continue, and that's why I want to continue serving on the city council, because we've made great progress in that. Ethics and transparency they're the key to making our government work. I've stood up a couple of times and said some things that were kind of unpopular with the old establishment, and a bolt of lightning didn't come from the sky and strike me dead. We can all do this together. We can change the way that we run our city government, and we can include everybody's voices. We're not always going to agree, and we're not always going to get it right, but as long as we all do it together, then we can have a place that this town can be the envy of all other towns in Central Texas. And everybody will say, I wish we were more like Bastrop. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
I'm not going to rebut. I'm just going to close. A vote for Deborah Jones is a vote for reasonable and responsible leadership. A vote for Deborah Jones is a vote for a successful businesswoman with a solid foundation and understanding of sound business and decision-making policy. I say we focus on the issues at hand like water, roads, drainage, infrastructure, police, and fire. I say we provide the clear leadership and direction for our city manager so that we may effectively handle the basic yet often overlooked needs of our town. I say we rely on professionals needed to meet the new challenges we face and stop pretending that we are the experts. I believe it is not the council's job regarding the daily business of convention, marketing, tourism, and recreation, especially why portions of our city continue to go unnoticed. I say enough. Personal agendas have no place on this council. When elected as your Place 5 council member, I promise to provide a sound and responsible business mind to this office. I promise to respect the citizens of this community and know that I will conduct myself as a professional and respectful member to both our mayor and our fellow council members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your participation. And remember, y'all, it doesn't do any good to come here if you don't go vote.
This forum was a cooperative effort on many levels. First of all, I have been remiss in not thanking Laura Klein. This is the fourth forum she has come to Bastrop to do from Lockhart, so please give her a round of applause. I'd also like to thank Bastrop ISD for the use of this facility. It's been amazing. And also for this being a teaching opportunity for our students. Like Herb mentioned, this is an extension of our We Believe in BISD campaign, and we've had AV students from both Bastrop High School and Cedar Creek High School on our cameras tonight, so give these students a round of applause. They're learning something about government. And then I have to thank the city of Bastrop for allowing us to use their IT department, particularly Andreas and Colin. And if you didn't know it, Andreas is spending his birthday with us. So Andreas, if you'll come to the front, please. We want to wish you a happy birthday ride. So please come get a token of our appreciation for spending your birthday with us. And then our Government Affairs Chair, Lee Harrell, thank you, and for the Board of Directors for your support of this initiative. And then I have to thank my very, very talented, don't run away, my very talented Chamber Rick up there in the box. He's the one who does the graphics, keeps our website up to date, so I have to thank him. And then Andy from the paper, thank you for covering this and giving us the publicity that you did. And especially I want to thank the 4 candidates. Thank you for trusting the Bastrop Chamber to put on a professional forum. Thank you for your willingness to run for office because it takes a lot of time and effort, and it's not a paid job, so thank you very much. And let's give them a round of applause too. And then lastly, I'll ask you to please continue to check bastropvotes.com for updates. We will be doing forums in the fall for the runoff elections. So thank you for your attendance and have a safe trip home.